Mm-hmm. Also, yeah, I feel like your audio sounds really good.
Oh, that's good. I got the AirPods, so
Yeah, those usually sound really good. Sometimes when people like mess, like if they have one of these with the little, and then they'll like mess with it on their
yeah, it jingles around.
lapel,
My
and I'm
my
like,
earrings might
stop.
my earrings might hit, so I apologize for
No,
that.
no, you'll be good. Okay, don't look at me while I say this part because I have
Okay.
to do the intro.
Wait, where should I look?
Then you can look at me, okay? It's just like a little bit like when I have to do these intros by myself. Well, normally I just make Mallory or McKenna do the intro literally because I just like it. But okay, I have to do it this time.
You can do it. You can do it. I'm rooting for you.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fuck Wellness. My name is Lara, and today I'm the only host. I'm all there is. And today we have a super cool guest on the pod to talk about our theme this month, which is still masculinity, month 2 of masculinity, because it was such a hot, flaming hot topic. And I'm really excited to talk about this today with our guest because I really trust them to be like very honest and upfront and just like put it how it is kind of when we are talking about this topic. And we're going to talk about a little bit of rowing stuff too, which I feel like I haven't really talked about on the podcast in a really long time. So let's get into it. Today on the pod we have Jem. Welcome. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been like almost
Too
over a
long.
year, right?
What month is it? November? Yeah.
Yeah, because we saw each other last October
Yes, we did. So
in
yeah, about a
person.
year. About a year.
Yeah,
That was a weird
damn,
weekend though. So
that was a weird week.
all of us shoved into that living room. It was
Yeah,
fun. A lot of fun, but it was weird.
yeah. Just for background, we like went back to Ann Arbor to get our
Our rings.
rings,
Our Big Ten
basically.
rings.
Yeah, our Big Ten rings, which I'm so sorry that baby has not gotten enough attention. I have not been wearing it for some
Yeah,
reason.
I guess I just don't really have anywhere to wear it to.
Yeah,
Kind of weird.
kind of weird. But yeah, we got our Big Ten rings. We all like 6 people slept in my old living room, which is not, it
Good
fits like
stuff.
maybe 2 people on a couch, but
We busted out the queen size air mattress. We made it work.
yeah, it was all good. Okay, let's get
Let's get after it. That's what the department heads say at my work.
oh
Let's
yeah,
get after it.
try to like motivate you to
Yeah,
do more
but
work
like in
for them.
a cool way. Like we're like a millennial company.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They're like super hip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, we had that.
I know what you mean. I feel like, yeah, job stuff is funny when they're like, we're a family, like we're just like here for each other. I'm like, no,
I'm
I
like,
don't
no, we're
want
not.
that.
No, I don't want
Okay, to start, I want to ask you about your name.
that. Okay. What about it?
I want to ask, when did you start going by Jem?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good, I kind of honestly, I think maybe a year ago, like summer 2021, I think I decided that I wanted to separate myself from like my previous identity as like just as a young woman and like who I was in high school and going into college, how that like rapidly changed and sort of like accelerated my realization about like my gender identity. For context, I am agender. I used to identify as non-binary, but I think the way that non-binary has become a third gender sort of pissed me off, because that's like the exact opposite of what its intention is. Like, the idea is that you're, the Venn diagram of girl and boy, man and woman, and non-binary doesn't fit in that Venn diagram. But I think like American society and that kind of thing like has sort of made non-binary the middle instead of charting it off. So even though agender, we shouldn't even like have a title, like that's the whole point. Again, same thing as non-binary, like the whole idea of agender is that I don't have a gender. But I do go by they them pronouns. And so I think changing my name was a good solid way for me to acknowledge my like stepping away from gender, rather than being genderqueer in the sense of like, oh, I am a man and a woman, like I mix, I'm androgynous, that kind of thing. I just kind of don't even want to be associated with a gender. And changing my name was a big step in that direction, or a step away from gender, I guess. Because I initially was like, as a non-binary person, I was okay with keeping my old name, but it had such a strong connection to like my past self, and that person, like I haven't been that person. I haven't been my 14-year-old self in a very long time, and that person doesn't exist anymore. No matter who wants that person to come back, they don't exist. So even though I am not out to my family or that kind of thing, I'm like slowly starting to integrate that as my nickname, just because it's kind of like, my reasoning for them is like, if my old nickname used to be Jules, Gem and Jewel, it's like, that's the pipeline. That's my pipeline. So
easy pipeline.
And it's like, Gem is a very like genderless name. It's not short for anything. And I've never met someone named Gem before. I've only encountered one fictional character named Gem. And that was like the most direct route for me to just change my name after I've decided step away from gender. And I do sometimes slip up, like call myself my dead name. I dead name myself sometimes, especially like around my family. I do like respond to my dead name, but I'm not like traumatized by it. I'm not gonna flip the table if someone uses the wrong pronouns or uses my dead name, but I do have to remind myself like of my own personal acknowledgement of my identity. Like, this is who you are now. Like, we have to sort of be more aware of that so that it can become second nature.
And when you think about your definition of agender, like how would you kind of define that? Is it kind of like is it kind of like non-binary in that it like has the meaning of non-binary that you wish non-binary had in the world, but it isn't anymore just because like it's become this other third thing? Or like, how would you define it?
I think that's a pretty good way to define it. I think, like I said before, it's kind of the exact opposite of gender fluidity, how a gender fluid person can comfortably feel masculine and feminine and be a man and be a woman and be everything in between and nothing at all. So I think agender is kind of the exact opposite of that. Like, I do not feel like a stereotypical woman. I definitely don't feel like a stereotypical man. Like a cis man. When I say stereotypical, I don't feel like a cis woman. I don't feel like a cis man. And I agree that like the like non-binary. Well, the non-binary label is so vast. Like you could have someone with a mustache going by she, her exclusively. And you can have, anyone going by any pronouns. So it, I think agender is just a label. It's just a word for me, but it's the best word that we have. And I think that's what a lot of like gender conversations, they're so reliant on labels and words. But once you just think and be introspective, you can sort of acknowledge the fact that sometimes this word agrees with me, sometimes this word agrees with me. So it's all just kind of like a very, very muddy situation. But yeah, I think agender is like the best label for now. But again, it's just a word to help people better understand me. But I don't really feel like I have to, state that I am agender. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that is a good kind of segue into like the first thing that I told you I wanted to talk about, which is like the rowing team that we are both on in college. Because I think that like, we could like have a whole 5 other episodes talking specifically about like
Oh, for sure.
gender in sports, but I think that at least in my experience with the team we were on, it just felt very like, this is the capital W women's rowing team of the Michigan. And
It
it
was
just
so
like,
woman.
it was so like, ladies, let's go, like we are women, da da da. And I kind of honestly kick myself now, years after leaving that environment, because I wish that I had kind of like, I don't know, I have various regrets about college, I suppose, but like this is like something that I think used to bug me a lot, was just that it was so like all caps women's team kind of a thing. And it's just like I don't know, I think when it's such a big team of so many people and so many different, people with so many different identities, but you're putting this one woman, like one word as woman, just on all of everyone, it just like, it rubbed me the wrong way. And yeah, it's just something that I wish I'd kind of been like, can we be curious about the language we're using like every day?
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
agree. It was like, even though I like started to like I was using she, they pronouns since 2019, and then in 2021 I think I was like, okay, they, them, let's go. But I was still, like you said, like stuck in that capital W, like stuck on the women's rowing team. Like I'm, playing a women's sport, I'm on the women's team. But I think like sort of just changing my own thoughts about it to, I'm on the varsity team rather than the women's rowing team. Like I'm on the varsity rowing team because there's only one varsity team. So
True.
the other,
Yeah.
there's only one varsity team. And yeah, that was just like a simple like mental change that I was able to make, to be like, okay, it's totally fine. Like I never really had a problem with like being lumped into the women category, because honestly I feel safer in women's spaces. I still use the women's restroom. So definitely I definitely agree though that we should have like started talking about, like maybe with just the seniors, or definitely with the coach, talking about like the language that they were using, especially the phrase strong women. Like that's a great phrase. I think that really helped me like become confident in high school. But since everyone's figuring themselves out still in college, it's very hindering to use such a gendered term even though it's a positive phrase, strong woman is a very positive phrase, and that's like a compliment. Most women take that as a compliment. But at the same time, it can be hard for certain people to constantly hear that word woman, you know, all girls team, women's team. She is such a strong team player, that kind of thing. So it never really bugged me because like I was very confident in after I decided I was stepping away from womanness. I was just it never really bothered me. I was just like, I know who I am, and if someone uses that word, I don't really care. I'll correct them, and if they don't take to it, then there's not really any point in talking to them anymore. So
Yeah. Yeah. It is something that, like, McKenna is a coach, and something that she's always like trying to make more of her, or like other more elderly coaches more aware of. It's like it's such an easy switch to just be like strong athlete, strong student, strong person. Like, we don't have to like be so dependent. I don't know. Yeah, strong woman, it's a nice phrase if that's what like you're vibing with, but imagine being like in the crowd of many and being like, wait, that's not, I mean, yeah, you can imagine, I'm sure.
Imagine being me.
Yeah. Can you do that for me?
Can you put yourself in my shoes, maybe?
But I don't know. I think like it's weird to think back on that. And then sometimes, like yesterday, I was thinking about this because sometimes with all of, being like, you and I can be in like the same page about like how gender things can be thought of, people can literally just do whatever the fuck they want, and then you can respect that. But I sometimes like to think about like, hypothetically, what would be the reason that someone would not want that? And like yesterday I was trying to think in my head, like, okay, Lara, like you could even still like reach out to some of those coaches and just be like, hey, this is something that like multiple people have not identified as women on this team, and I'm not sure if you're like aware of that. And I was just kind of thinking like, that is still something that you could do, but hypothetically, what would be any reason why someone on that team or someone in sports would not want like progressive change to happen, I guess, in terms of like gendered language or talking about acceptance on the team or like all of this other stuff. And it was really hard to think of any reasons, but I want to ask you, like, in a hypothetical world, can you think of like any reason why someone would not be vibing?
Is the hypothetical world an ideal world? Like,
No,
in an ideal world, or is it just our world?
More so like,
could I think of any reason?
Could you think of any reason that like anyone would be like, oh, I actually don't think that we should take out all this, like that we should ever mess with the way we talk about the athletes, or ever mess with the way that we talk about gender on our team, or talk about like, because when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, maybe, not saying that this is like a valid reason, but maybe it's because like, other things are, you don't want to like distract the athletes or something, or you don't want to like, I don't know. It was honestly very hard to think of any reason why anyone wouldn't be open to making a change like that on a team.
Yeah, I think any request to leave it as it is unbased. Yeah. I also can't think of any reason why someone would want to keep like the language so gendered. Well, I mean, I can think of a reason, but I don't want to play devil's advocate in this situation. I'll just share it for fun though, just for the idea of like conserving the space as a place for women. Like, I guess the only thing to compare it would be to like queer spaces, like straight people infiltrating queer spaces because it's more fun. And then it becomes a not queer space. So then the, you know, oppressed groups have to go find a new space. But I don't think gender queer people are the oppressed in that situation if you compare them to women who are, I guess, the middle, men, women, gender queer, you know, like that kind of thing, like with the hierarchies of and the intersectionalities of oppression. Women have the advantage over like non-women identifying people. I guess we can call them women adjacent or non-men. I'm not really sure. But yeah, again, I can't think of any reason other than wanting to keep the space restricted for women. But again, that thinking is it's not inclusive and it's not healthy because it just shuts the door on growth. Because like I was never like, I was out, but only if you asked me. Like I never really talked about like gender or sexuality unless prompted, and so people were surprised when I would come out to them. You know, I mean, I wouldn't come out to them, I would just say something very obviously not straight, and they would look at me confused, and I was like, look at me. It's like, you know, it's okay to assume about that. For me, maybe if you knew me, then you would be you know, you'd understand that you can assume something about me based off of my appearance. But that's kind of like context clues, I don't know. But yeah, I think that that decision is, it's like lead by example with the coaches, and then it trickles down to the seniors, and then that trickles down to the rest of the team. But I don't think that it's a very hard concept to grasp. So having that conversation, having a quick team meeting, that kind of thing, wouldn't distract the focus away from the sport.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think it would. And I guess like the only other like hypothetical not valid reason that I can think of is like, you know, with an established program like that, stuff that, you know, makes like, you know, rocks the boat isn't always super, at least in my experience with like talking about that stuff, it's not like we don't want to rock the boat. Like we want to, you know, win a championship. We don't want to rock the boat, which I'm like, okay, like they can be very connected though as well. And the only like other thing that I can think of is having like having a super in-depth like team conversation about this. I can see where, you know, with a team that large, with so many, you know, political backgrounds, religious backgrounds, beliefs about like what is okay and what isn't when it comes to gender and sexuality, like I can only think that maybe like people would be worried that a conversation about like, you know, using like non-gendered pronouns would then be like, oh, now we're going to talk about trans people in sports, and then we're going to talk about like all this other like politically super ultra charged stuff that maybe, yeah, I can just think of like how it could rock the boat with just certain people. There's so many different personalities on such a big team like that.
Yeah, I agree, but it doesn't have to be like that. Like it's very easy to have a very civil and simple conversation, or just make a statement like, hey, we're going to make efforts to use less gendered language and be more inclusive, because the biggest value on the team it was getting to know each other.
Yeah.
So if you were better able to understand someone on the team, even if you're not close with them, then all the better. If you can just click with someone, or even if you have a semi-deep conversation with someone, then you can have a bit more respect for them and maybe you can understand them better. So I don't think that it would ever be a detriment to the team to have that conversation. And we wouldn't have to schedule a team meeting for that. It could just be like a quick little message. It could just be maybe something coming from the team rather than the leader, like the coming from the team rather than from the coaches, I think would have a bigger impact. But because the coaches do have like an authoritarian standpoint over the team, and some athletes don't have the best relationship with their coaches. So I think if that conversation were to come from the seniors on the team and the leaders on the team and people that others look up to, they can lead by example, and it can just become a habit to not use such gendered words. But
Yeah. Do you feel like there was, like, putting yourself back into like gem of 2019, like, can you think of anything that like me or like your fellow like classmates of your class or like fellow teammates could have done just to like make you feel more comfortable in like being like, oh hey, I'm now using they them pronouns, like kind of that switch?
um there isn't anything that really stands out to me, because I think after I came to the realization that I wanted to sort of explore gender identity, it like I sort of shut off the outside world and I just stayed very introspective. And I think that's just kind of part of my personality. Like once I've decided something, once I've, sorted it through, sifted it through my brain, and I've understood something, then I don't let outside influences like waver me. I'm very steadfast after I've decided something about myself. So if I knew I wanted to be on the rowing team, I was on the rowing team. I knew I wanted to what I wanted to do in school, so then I did that. I knew that I was having a lot of thoughts about gender, and I was like, yeah, people who are cis don't do that. So let's think a little bit more. And then I decided, well, okay, I'm not cisgender anymore. And that was that. But I think like the only thing that others can do to help someone having like a gender or a sexuality crisis is to indirectly show support. And then when that person does decide to come out, if they do decide to come out, then you can show direct support. But like indirect support would be things like the language that you use, and not saying certain things, rather than like maybe constantly talking about a boyfriend, because sometimes for some people that's just hard to constantly hear their friends talking about their partners who are only men. And so maybe someone wouldn't feel comfortable mentioning that they have a female partner if they are female, that kind of thing. Like doing the little things just to sort of establish a safe environment, and then the person in question understands that it's a safe environment so that they can feel more comfortable being themselves and coming into themselves, that kind of thing. And then once they can confidently be themselves, then you can like be more direct with support.
That makes sense. You have a very logical brain, I feel like. This step,
yeah, there's a lot going on up
this
here. It's like I acknowledge an idea, I sort it, If it doesn't roll with me, I throw it out.
Yeah,
So
it's
I'm
good.
very, very like,
Efficient.
I wouldn't say it's an efficient thinking process. It's thorough. It's very thorough.
I'm very thorough.
I'm very thorough. I overthink, but I mean, like I said, it's on my brain. Like I I I literally can't not think about my gender identity, even though I acknowledge who I am and I know and I'm confident in who I am and that kind of thing. Like I'm literally always thinking about it. I'm like, how am I, like, I'm not trying to perceive myself all the time, but I just do. It's just something I'm so hyper aware of all the time. Like, not that other people are judging me, but just that I'm thinking about it. Like I'm just always thinking about gender, and it's honestly exhausting. And then not even trying to convince myself who I am, but just thinking about it. Like I see things online, I read stuff, and I watch TikToks and people talking about having discussions, that kind of thing, having arguments, and it's just always like floating around in my head. And rarely it's bad. It's like rarely bad stuff, but it's just always going on.
Damn.
I know.
I know.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So, like the fact that I like have a channel to like spew, it's crazy. There's just a lot of ideas. I'm spewing ideas. Don't know if a lot of them are connecting. But.
Do you have okay, so thinking about the process of your brain again.
Okay, let's go. Let's pick it.
Okay. So like you intake something, you know, maybe through your eyeballs or your ear holes, and you're like, okay, got it. Like we're thinking about that, like whatever. And then maybe it gets thrown out, or maybe you then implement something in your life, you know, maybe rethinking your gender, anything else like that, how you look, whatever. Is there anything inside of that brain of yours that has not been thrown out or accepted yet that you're like, let's roll that around?
This one is tough because okay, I have an answer.
Okay.
It's like I have an overwhelming sense of guilt as a genderless person who is attracted to feminine people. But the issue is that I am attracted to masculinity as long as it comes from a non-man. Does that make sense? Like, I am not attracted to men. I suppose the best label would be lesbian, but a lesbian is a woman who's attracted to women. So you have to take out gender, and the issues come up when I think about how gender and sexuality are related. No matter what people on the internet say, if someone was not a woman, I would not be attracted to them. Like, I am not attracted to men, plain and simple. But if someone has, you know, there's a non-binary person, they don't identify as a man. I have more of an inclination to be attracted to them because of like the cisgendered masculinity that is just, you know, it's just kind of overwhelming to like conceptualize, and it doesn't feel safe. Like
being attracted to cis men.
Yeah, it definitely would be a nightmare to marry one, to be in a relationship with one. So I'm fortunate to not have experienced that. But I think like I have this guilt of like the ideas about like lesbianism and how that is so reliant on gender, because some people, I've never met one before, I've never met a person like this before, but some people identify as lesbian and use he, him pronouns. That doesn't make sense to me, but I am not the person to like tell people who they are and who they can't be, because you know, you just acknowledge who you are and you hold that belief. And so being like in a lesbian relationship would be tough. It has been tough in the past, because then that would mean that perhaps my partner sees me as a woman. Like, do they really see me as just a person? Or are they seeing me and being attracted to me because they still see me as a woman? Like, meeting someone and being able to like meet them now, like meeting a new person now. Okay, let me just rephrase this. Like, I don't even know how to say this. I guess meeting new people is a lot easier now because they have no past like conception of who I am. They don't have to rethink who I am and constantly check themselves. So when I get to introduce myself as Gem, and when I get to tell them my pronouns, that is their first conception of me. So then I would probably feel better and safer and like with them, just because there's no chance that they know my real name. There's no chance that there's a chance that they could slip up on my pronouns, but again, like, they don't have that habit of using she, her pronouns with me. They only know me as someone who uses they, them pronouns. So it would be, I would be aware of their speech. I hope they would be aware of their speech, but I wouldn't be able to rest if I was, when I'm with someone who knows me from my past. And so that's why it's especially hard to talk to my family, because I'm not out to them, and it's just constant stream of words that I don't identify with.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
there's
That was great. I have a lot of things to say.
There's so much going on in my head, bro.
Yeah. That's a
This
really
is what
good,
I'm always thinking about. Like,
that's a
this
good
is just the
answer.
tip of the iceberg. I'm always
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Damn. Yeah. I mean, that is like also something that like I feel like a lot of people are thinking about that stuff just because it's really, really huge shit to think about. First, the thing about like trying to like understand who you're attracted to is like the hardest thing in the world, because you're like, wait, well, I don't know, like it's I've thought a lot about that. I'm always like, wait, if I had to give a label to the person that in my mind I'm most attracted to, I wouldn't be able to, because I just have no idea. Like, and I don't know, I think like dating and having, I don't know, yeah, having someone in your life that you're dating, and like to constantly be kind of thinking about like, wait, do you like me for the reasons that I want you to like me, kind of a thing? Because I can ask you and you can tell me with your words, but it's like, do I believe that you like me for the, like, because of the person who I am, and not because of, you like what we look like together, or you like what you give. I don't know. There's so much. There's
so much.
There's so much there, and like personally, like I don't think Kai would mind me talking about this, but my partner Kai has always like kind of since we met been very honest and like wanting to check in with me and just be like, I need reassurance that you don't like that you don't identify, I guess, as a lesbian, because I am not a woman. And like if we are in this relationship, this will not be your first lesbian relationship, Lara. This is like, that's not what this is. And I'm like, yeah, obviously I know that. Like, I do not see you as a woman, but that's something that, obviously would be a fear if that is something that you're actively trying to get rid of in your identity. And now you care about someone and you care about how they're perceiving you, and you need to believe, you know, that they're perceiving you the right way in order to feel good with them. So yeah, that I totally understand, at least part of it. And I think it reminded me of something else, kind of the safer speech thing, like wanting to maybe be more in space, like be more in queer spaces where no one has ever met you before, because there's just way less chance of people fucking up. And sometimes, like, I don't know if the feeling is like guilt, but sometimes, honestly, I would say maybe it is guilt, but sometimes, like, when I'm hanging out with friends of Kai's who have known them for their whole entire life, and there's a slip up of some way, like of some sort, I sometimes feel like some kind of bad, because I'm like, I have never known them as that person, so there's just way less percentage that I will ever like say something like that, because that's not who I know. Like, I've never known that person. And so sometimes, I don't know if it's a feeling of guilt of being like, oh, I feel bad that happened, because it doesn't feel good to mess up, especially when you don't want to. But then it's also like, wait, I'm somehow privileged in the way that, like, it's way less likely that I will mess up like that. So weird.
Yeah, it's really always thinking.
Always
Yeah, and
think.
it's like like you said, like sort of being reborn in queer spaces where you can sort of finally introduce yourself again. It's like a second try. And I think I think the idea is what is it called, like queer puberty, where you sort of like like you finally can become yourself, and you've figured things out about yourself more, and that kind of thing. But it's tough, but like being able to enter that space, I was fortunate to meet up with some friends from Chicago, and they had never met. They were like mutual friends, so we all hung out together, and I was able to introduce myself as Jem and just be myself. And they didn't really know anything about me other than what my best friend told them, but I trust my best friend to, tell them some things about me that are true and not slip up at all. So it was like a very relieving feeling, and I didn't have to like play pretend. I didn't have to, because two of us were using they them pronouns, and another, he was using he him pronouns. And then we just had the whole bucket of queer people in one space for a weekend, and it was just so safe, and no one was slipping up. There was no worry that anyone would slip up, because we all, like, even though I hadn't met any of them except for two of them before, we were like all just confident that we would stay on top of our language and not mess up at all. And it was just like a really fun time, even though we didn't even leave the house. So all we did was play D&D for 2 days.
That's all you need.
That's all we need.
I feel like I will get in trouble if we don't ever say the word masculinity on this episode. So masculinity. Okay, we can keep going. No, I do think, like, to connect it, I do think that, like, a lot of this stuff has to do kind of just with, I don't know how to say this, but, like, I mean, obviously masculinity is tied into, like, gender stuff, and I I guess like a connection that I'm seeing right now. Oh my God, my tummy just grumbled so loudly.
I didn't hear it. Keep going.
The
You're
mic
good.
might have
You're in the
picked it up
clear. You're in the clear.
though. Okay. Just like a big connection that I'm kind of like the only one that's coming to my brain right now is just that like it's just both hard to talk about, like gender stuff, masculinity stuff, like femininity, connection, Venn diagram, all of it. Like it's just it's all hard to talk about. It's a big topic, I guess. And it's good to talk about. It's like really, really good shit to talk about, but sometimes it's confusing to talk about, but then it's like when you think about it, it's like, wait, it's actually incredibly simple to just be like, I want to be seen as this, like refer to me as such, or like I want to be seen in this way, I want to be seen more masculine, like just respect that and do that. Like it's that part isn't complicated, but sometimes just like the talking about it can feel like a lot.
Yeah, I get that, because it's like you said before, like even though someone is saying something, you don't know if they actually believe it. So it's like it's difficult to like suss out who's just repeating things to put on the coat of respect versus who's actually believing the things that they're saying.
Yeah.
So it's that, like it's a gamble, but you never know until you know.
That's life.
That's life, baby.
Life. Okay, I have like one last question. We've been like, I think, talking for about an hour, but I want to talk about this. Have you ever heard the term Jeb?
No.
Okay. So the term Jeb, Jeb, it well, it was coined / created by this comedian who wow, it just growled again. It is angry. She's angry. Okay.
She's hungry.
We're gonna go. Okay. Coin like made by this comedian named Gara, and they have a podcast as well. It's called the N Baby Podcast. I would highly recommend to any and everyone. But it's this term, it stands for gender euphoric bliss. So it's like you would maybe ask like where do you feel most Jeb? Like in, or like what are you like, what when you like think about like your clothing, where you feel the most Jeb? Like what is that clothing? I want to ask the clothing because I think clothing is like super affects how you feel about your gender. And then I also want to ask like activities, because I think at least for me, like there are certain activities that I can do where I'm just like, I feel so at home in my gender right now, like I am vibing. And then there are other activities where I'm just like, this makes me very uncomfortable for some reason. And I think it's because it's something to do with like not it with like how I see myself, kind of a thing. Feels forced. So yeah, I want to ask about clothing and activities. Jeb.
Okay, Jeb, my most Jeb moment. Major Jeb, top 10 Jeb moment. Honestly, like I think since my like fashion sense is basically like Midwest emo, I just feel really comfortable in like
Midwest emo. That's good.
Sorry. Just think like Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
2020, early 20s, early 2000s. Fast forward. But yeah, just like Midwest emo, like jeans, Vans, and like a hoodie. I think like I have an interesting relationship with my body because it's very hard for me to put on weight. And I love working out, but it comes from half of it comes from, that's the only thing I've ever done in my life, work out all the time. I swam competitively from like elementary to high school, and then we rode in college. So that was just workouts upon workouts. And that's the only thing I've ever known is exercise every
Yeah.
day. So that kind of comes from like a habitual standpoint, but like I like to wear clothing that emphasizes like my musculature, but I don't want it to feminize my body. So it's
Mhm.
really tough to find clothes that do that for me, especially because I don't like shopping for clothes. And I don't really have a diverse wardrobe. Like I said, it's Midwest emo. So I have 3 pairs of jeans and an ungodly amount of hoodies and 1 jean jacket. So that's like what we're working with. But when I feel like euphoric in my outfits is when, oddly, when I cover up, like wearing baggy jeans and like a baggy top, like maybe a big t-shirt or something like this, like a crew neck, where you can't really perceive my figure,
Mhm.
because that just like having, not having curves, but I'm just kind of like boxy, but I like my waist goes in. So like people can like see that from me. They can perceive that from me, and I don't like that. So I would
Mhm.
prefer to like cover that up, and it just feels more comfortable to just have that like security blanket almost.
Yeah.
And like the baggy jeans are like to sort of hide like my hips. Like I don't really have like big hips,
Mhm.
but it's just, they're just like more comfortable to like wear the baggy jeans and just sort of like see like the straight line, and like just to like see that like on my figure. That's just like comfortable. But at the same time, I love to wear skinny jeans because I like to accentuate like my leg muscles, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so it's like tough, especially if I want to wear a nicer outfit. I'm kind of stuck with like black slacks and a not fitting blouse. And that's blouse woman. So,
Yeah.
I can't really escape from that just yet. Like, I think formal attire for genderqueer people is the hardest thing to figure out, because
Yeah,
like
I
I
was just about
know
to
I
say that's like the biggest gap in fashion right now. I'm like,
it's
what's
so hard
happening?
because brands and like, fashion designers, high fashion designers will just say, fashion has no gender. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
If you give a trans woman a dress that fits her well, she will not stop wearing it and she will look gorgeous. If you give a trans man a suit that fits him and is tailored well, he will rock that shit. He will work you out in that suit. Like so it's like very difficult to not only afford a fashion that fits your gender identity, but because so many, people just, genderqueer people experience so many different emotions even when getting ready. Like maybe you feel like you want to look a bit more masculine, but then by the time you put your shoes on, you're like, god damn it, I want to wear a skirt instead, like,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I don't feel that way. I personally am more comfortable wearing like men's clothing. um but it's, honestly, I don't really feel the jeb a lot
Mm.
because I have such a restricted wardrobe. And it's just hard to branch out when you don't know where to go. And like, as I'm still like coming into myself and sort of understanding what looks good on me, what doesn't, like I can only, acquire a few pieces every few months. Like maybe it's a new pair of pants and I'll wear them until they are threads. But I also like don't need new clothes. So it's like, well, I don't it's not mandatory, even though it makes me feel good. I don't need them, even though I would like to wear them to look a certain way.
Mhm.
But I think, oddly enough, I do feel gender euphoric when I wear workout clothes,
Mm.
but that's just because I can like hide and accentuate my body, and like just being able to like watch myself in the mirror. That's just like, I know that what I'm doing is like, I'm doing like comfortable workouts. I'm like confident that, whatever people want to watch, whatever. I don't care if people stare at me at the gym, like that kind of thing. So I mean, in my neighborhood, people like me don't go to the gym. So it's like, it's weird, like putting on, the workout clothes and going to the gym, like legs out, spandex on, that kind of thing, and just sweating up a storm, running around with all these like beefy high schoolers and old men. It's
Wow.
just,
We go
it's
to
like
the same gym. I didn't realize
I,
that.
I kind of like, yeah. So yeah, it's just like that, like the outfit itself, Jeb, the space, not Jeb.
Yeah. 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 But I feel like the feeling would be Jeb, like feeling strong
Yeah, like being
and
able to like work out when there's like no one there, that's great.
oh yeah.
Because honestly, I just like get pissed off when like these high school boys are just like flirting with each other and like
Oh my
standing in front of the
God.
leg press. I'm like, can you guys get out of my way? I am trying to get some gains here,
I
and your
also
little
don't know,
twink body
when do you
is
go to
not doing
school?
anything.
Why are
Yeah,
all the high
what's
schoolers
up
at the
with
gym
that?
at all times?
What's up with that?
Go to
Like,
school.
I see, like in the summer, or like at like the beginning of the school year, I would see like kids rolling in anywhere from like 4:30 until like 7. I'm like, what do you guys do? It's just really weird when kids don't like do sports or like clubs after school. I'm like, why are you here? I didn't go to the gym until like I was in college,
Yeah.
because I like swam after school.
Yeah.
And then when I wasn't on high school swimming, I was on club swimming, and that was also swimming after school
Yeah.
at the same pool all year.
Swim, swim,
So
swim, swim, swim.
swimming so fast, bro.
I
Probably
feel
not
like
anymore.
there's definitely like this would maybe take some effort, but I'm like intrigued that there's a business idea out there for sending like box of boxes of like hand-picked clothing to like more genderqueer people, because it's like, yeah, clothing isn't, I guess, life and death necessary, but it also can make you feel really good when it's the right thing, when it's like the right jacket, the right sweater, the right pants. Like it can be super powerful, and it sucks that like shopping does, it's the worst, especially
Hmm.
if you have like a bad history with like that, or you're like, I'm just like not loving my body right now, or like not loving like how I'm being seen. Like, yeah, obviously you're not going to go shopping. Like, sounds horrible.
Yeah, and it's like having to go into the women's section because I need something
Yeah, choose.
for my
What
body.
section? Men or women?
Yeah, well, I
Choose.
could get these size 12 sneakers or these size 5 boots. What are
Yeah.
your options?
Yeah.
So it's just, but I love that idea about like, it's kind of like, what are those little like Birchbox?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So just
There's
sort
a
of like
lot of
little
subscription stuff.
like tester beauty products that you can get. So I have honestly thought about that as well, especially in like high school when I just wore the same outfit like every day. Uh I was always like, "Ugh, I wish there was just like a store where I could like give them my measurements and tell them
Hmm.
what I like, and then they could just make the clothes for me." And I was like, that's perhaps a gendered thought, Jem.
Hmm.
Maybe we should
Yeah.
unpack that.
Yeah.
And then I didn't for like 5 years.
Yeah. And
I
then I
was like,
didn't,
ugh,
but I eventually did.
yeah.
Uh,
Honestly, I feel like my first experience with like this Jeb idea was like wearing the boys' uniform at my middle school, because
Ooh.
my we had to the girls' uniform was like a skirt, plaid skirt, uh white shirt, could be like long sleeve or short sleeve, had to have like 3 buttons on it. I went to Catholic school, by the way,
Yeah,
so this was
wow, damn.
very I know. And then we had to wear this like stupid little sweater vest, and we couldn't take it off even in like the summertime. So like in June or like May or September when it was ungodly hot because there was no ungodly, see what I did there. There was no air conditioning in the school, or at least in the classrooms. The hallway had air conditioning, but we couldn't like take off this sweater vest. And there were just so many rules about, you know, against girl bodies basically. But one day I like spilled, it's like something, I think it was paint on my skirt, and they didn't have an extra one in the office that fit me, so they gave me pants. And I was like,
Nice.
these are pretty
It
comfortable.
worked. You
It
fell
worked.
for it.
Thank you for the gender. I was like, wow. I was like, oh my God, the boys have it so easy. They don't have to wear the skirt with the shorts underneath, and they don't have to worry about like anyone seeing their underwear. They don't have to wear these tall socks, and they don't have to wear the sweater vest, like all these things. I was just like, well, that's gender, baby.
Yeah,
Welcome to the
that's a
real
big
world.
thought right there.
That was a big thought for a little like 12-year-old.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. I think we should wrap up. Wait, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about on your docket of things?
Okay, I like wrote something down and I cannot find it for the love of me. I wish I could like control find on a piece of paper. Oh, hold on. Let me
You can
find
take a
there's
second.
okay, yes, I appreciate that. Hmm. Oh, here it is. Okay. Um, okay, so I don't know how to like segue into this.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. So I'll just put it up here. Okay, so okay, humans have a disposition to categorize, and that's like the way the majority of our brains work.
Mhm.
And so when we think about things like masculinity and femininity and who's a man and who's a woman, that kind of thing, are like it takes a while which like to accept and to categorize those different people that we encounter. So if something maybe doesn't fit your idea of a man or a woman or what's masculine and what's feminine, then you have to either make a new category or make an exception to that category. And I think a lot of people, well, I wouldn't say a lot of people, certain people with certain ideals are less inclined to accept or make exceptions for their categories just because they don't want it to disrupt the system. That was my thought.
That's a great thought. You know what
Yeah, I wrote it down. You see, I wrote it down.
Yeah,
So it's
did.
it's eloquent and thought through. But yeah, that's, you know.
I think, wait, the part at the beginning about like disrupting the categories in your brain, like this is, I feel like a lot of people who like a lot of like people, maybe straight people, cishet people who aren't in queer spaces, who don't see a lot of people playing with gender, get like, it's like mind blowing to them to like perceive people who do, or perceive people who are like so like in between playing with like the lines and the boundaries, and you're just like, it can break your brain. For me, it's like, it's really like, it's hot when people like have like a brain explosion where they're like, I don't even know what to like,
I don't
how
even
to,
know what you are.
no, because like you're right, brains love the categories, like the checkout person, I want to put you in a category. The person I
Mhm.
say hello to, like on the way to work, I want to put you in a category. But it's like when your brain literally can't do that, it's such a fun feeling of being like, nothing is real, everything is whatever you want it to be. Like, and that
Mhm.
is a cool feeling. Like, and I personally, like, I love people. I love I love that feeling within myself. I love watching people who don't get to feel that feeling often. I love watching them do that. And like trying to, I like can see the little wires and lights in their brain try and somehow like make sense of what they're seeing. And if you can't, and I love that.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
crazy. It's
it's
great.
awesome.
I've like I've been doing that to like my parents,
Yeah.
and it's like really funny when they have to stop mid conversation, and then they have to like
Yeah. Yeah.
either ask a follow-up question or just continue on. It's
Uh-huh.
really interesting. It's really interesting to watch them work.
Yeah. Brains are cool, dude.
Brains are cool.
Cool, cool, cool. All right. I think we should finish up.
Probably. What time is it? I need to have dinner.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming on. This was
Thank you
so
for
fun.
having me.
Yeah.
This was
Come back
so fun.
anytime. Literally come back anytime because I really want you to meet McKenna and Mal. So
Okay.
we're gonna have you back,
Yeah, it's so
okay?
sad I couldn't meet McKenna.
I know she ran like so last minute had to go to Texas. Poor gal.
No.
Yeah. But we'll have you back for another thing so you can meet them, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Yay. Thank you everyone for listening. That was this week's episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.
I hate the intros and outros. I wish they weren't a thing, but they are.
Well, at least you don't drag it out.
Yeah, no,
Like,
keep it short and sweet. Yeah.
welcome to November, everybody. What are we talking about? I'm your host. Or like if you did a bit like opening, I would have just like left. An opening.
You walk out the door.
Bye. I just leave the camera. My cat just like jumps up here again. That would be so bad. I can't believe she did that. That was so bad of her. Oh, she's so naughty. She's so bad.
I wish I had been recording during that, but we probably would have like had to put like some like privacy, like
A mosaic
huge
blur,
disclaimer, like
black bar.
this is not an appropriate video for
You
anyone
have
to
to rate
watch.
it. You have to rate my podcast now. Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go eat something.
Yeah, me too. I think I'll have pizza.
Okay, yummy. All right. Thank you so much for doing this.
Bye.
Bye.
Really enthusiastic bye.
Abrupt too.